I just want to take this point to apologize to people who watch it. Delight is just doing a crazy thing in my
Is it a
area.
crazy thing
Of
or is it
course.
doing?
Or
Is it
is it
blessing us? That's what I want to know.
Oh, really?
Is it blessing us?
Jabari is like the light is doing that kind of thing while he poses like
Right? He's
yeah,
like
the
the
light
light
I'm like,
just
delight is doing.
like just like doing something
light.
right now. I'm like, I don't really know what it's doing, but like,
Basically. Yeah, Haley, you can finish up. You can talk about how it resolved.
okay, yeah. So, well, I mean, resolve is a strong word. I think I'm very much in the same boat as Stefan, where it's a journey and it's a process.
Mhm.
And I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I think a lot of the things that I mentioned that I felt, I probably still sort of feel in certain capacities. But started therapy, it was really difficult. I think for a long time, I never realized how closed off I was. And that was just weird for me because, like I mentioned, I'm generally very transparent. I'm very, detachment is not like a big thing for me. The level of detachment that I reached was insane. So to like kind of unearth that stuff was a difficult process. The one thing I'll share that kind of shattered me in therapy in the best way. Because, like I said, I was kind of just there and I was like, I don't really know why I'm here. I just think I have issues and I want to have to deal with them. But at the same time, I'm not forgiving my dad and I'm just putting that out there. Like I told my therapist that up front. I was like, let's not even talk about that. Let's not talk about forgiveness. Let's not talk about those things because that ain't happening. I want you to fix my problems without that.
Without solution.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah.
give me
We
no
can talk
solution.
about stuff, but don't tell me to try to mend nothing because we ain't doing that. We're not going down that road, right? Like I was convinced. And it was something she said to me where she said, when the Bible talks about honor thy father and thy mother, and she said to me, you should honor your parents even if they're not honorable. And there's no like caveats or disclaimer there that like honor your father and your mother only when they're honorable. Honor them only when they're present. Honor them only when, they're all these things. But it's just honor thy father and thy mother in the Lord and the rest of the scripture. That's I know, right? And that kind of floored me because I was like, whoa, this is intense. And we had a long discussion about what it means to honor somebody even when you don't fully feel like connected to them, or it's difficult to respect them. And I was able to learn the difference between those things. As in honoring doesn't mean, hey, we need to have the best relationship and, talk all the time. Because I had a lot of defenses up with him and rightfully so. And she knew that, like rightfully so, as in to protect myself from getting hurt. Because I think similar to stuff Steph mentioned when he was younger, there's a lot of like broken promises and a lot of, yeah, I'll change and yeah, this will be better. And it just never happens. So naturally they're like guards up. And we talked about using wisdom and using discernment in those situations. But I mean, at the end of the day, it just came down to the fact that as a Christian and as somebody who believes like forgiveness, that kind of has to happen, it reaches that point. And like I said, I never thought I could forgive. Sometimes I still wonder, I was like, have I fully? It was a big step to even kind of start back talking. And I mean, when we did, he was just there. Like I think he was just glad that, we could start back talking. And I definitely still had a lot of like defenses up. But like I mentioned, it was the whole like honoring your parents, even if they're not honorable, and what that meant for me. And I did a lot of research on that and understanding that. And finally understanding that I guess when my mom said, like, this is still your dad, no matter what he did. And I used to hate hearing that when I was younger. Hate it. Because I was like, don't tell me that. And now I look back and I'm like, I mean, that's true. Yeah, that's true. So yeah.
I love the fact that because I started therapy this year as well.
Ooh.
And yes, one session down, woot woot.
Yeah.
On the way to be a
Therapy and
better
Jesus, guys.
person.
Therapy and Jesus.
Yes.
I need that t-shirts. I need therapy.
Right?
Jesus on therapy, yeah, I wanted to. And I love the fact that we all kind of attest to therapy a little bit. You guys more than I can. So I want to touch on where are you at now, right? Not just with it's a two-pronged question. Where are you at now with yourself, and where are you at now with your dad? Be it good or bad, prayer, therapy, honest conversations. Where are you now, and what did it take to get to those places? Stefan, I'll start with you.
Okay. Firstly, I will answer this part. I realized for this whole thing, I haven't addressed how I am in relationships because of dealing with my father not being there. I think for me, growing up,
romantic relationships or
romantic
general?
relationships.
Okay.
In particular, like my friendships, I always felt like my friends would always end up leaving me because I just felt like everybody's going to leave me or going to disappoint me. So that's how I framed all my friendships. I felt like you're all going to always leave me. In terms of my romantic relationships, I never once really knew how to approach a girl. One, I never knew how to talk to a girl, how to carry on a conversation, how to properly flirt with a girl. So like I used to always like ask my friends and like they'll give me some stupid answer to embarrass me, of course, because we're teenagers, young teenagers, we want to laugh, we want to do whatever. So like, it would always be like a kind of weird situation trying to get girls. And then I think for me, I also had to deal with a lot of commitment issues. I never could have settled down. And I want to say it's because of my father, but I want to say it's because of maybe the frame of him just not being there. But I don't want to necessarily totally blame him for that, but I just felt that as to, because I never saw anything stable in terms of marriage, in terms of relationships, I just felt like I could never commit to this. So like I've never had a serious relationship up to now. It's just like everything I've had was kind of like flings. It was kind of like nothing substantial, nothing surface, nothing beyond surface level. And like right now, I'm just only part of redefining myself in relationships and taking time to really know myself right now. I think I've taken time to heal because I think whatever woman I want to go around now, I want to be a better version for her. You know what I mean?
Right. Period.
So, like, yes, I've had my things. I had times where, I felt that it's like I always had that second doubt in my mind about things working out or me being the man that she needs to be in a relationship. And that has always been guiding me throughout every type of situation or situationship I had. Right now, I'm just working on myself. I'm working on myself individually, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, especially because I just think that whoever is going to be my next relationship, I want to give a better version of myself. In terms of right now, emotionally, I'm doing better. I think so. What's happened with me? I'm not too sure if like you all have had it, but last year I decided. So after going to therapy, one thing that my therapist said was, "You have not been in total control of your reality. You've allowed other things, other situations, other people to be in control of your emotions, your feelings, your everything." She said, it's time for you to take back control of your reality and do what you need to do or do what you want to do. And she said it can be guided by God or it could be guided by emotions. You have to choose what you want to do. She said you have options. You can go and talk to him and get closure and get understanding or whatever you want to get. You can go and talk to him. You can resent him for the rest of your life, not talk to him, say forget him, say man is dog and never be like him. You can go and do malicious things, bad talk him, go online, post about him all the time, post negative things about him and his family, never respect them. You can do all of that. It's your choice, and it's time for you to take control of your reality and what you think you should take place. And she said, when you take control of your situation, it's when you can start in some sense, get some sort of healing with the situation because you're doing what you want to do essentially, or you will have no regrets in doing it because this is something that you want to do. Pussy, right? I just decided that, you know what, I am going to talk to him. So I decided to have a conversation with him. I invited him last year. I invited him out. This is when restaurants were allowing people to go in and sit. And we went to a restaurant and we started the conversation. Essentially, okay, I have it written down because I wrote down everything that how I wanted to approach this, right? So I just read what I had to approach this whole conversation with him. I think one of the if you're listening and you're interested in having a conversation with your father about everything that happened, I think one of the major things is to make sure that you are in a sane and good mental space. as a precaution before you go into this situation. And then also when you're going into this conversation, you have to make sure that you are in a place where you're not coming in anger or malice. I think sometimes it'll be easy to just switch into that and just be like, but you was never there, you didn't know that. And you just start to rattle off, and no, that wouldn't, trust me, that wouldn't get the results you want to do. Just be a bunch of arguing and it just be comments, and you don't want that. But rather come go into that situation in a place of you want to understand and you want to heal. You want to move on. I think I went there because I wanted to move on and overcome something that I thought has held me bound for so long, so many years. Like I've been dealing with this, or it's been underlying in every situation almost every situation that I encountered. I went there going with the feeling that I want to overcome. So upon going again closer to the meeting time, because I have a tendency sometimes I could freeze up when dealing with situations like this, I decided to write down questions that I feel like I should ask. I wanted my questions not be directly why he wasn't in my life. I didn't want to come off like that. So the questions that I had was to ask about his health and his family. Then I asked him about his childhood, how it was for him growing up. What was his parents like? What was his structure like? Then I asked him about how he and my mom got together and what that was like to him. And, trying to understand like how that came together. And then after asking those questions, and I guess in the midst of the conversation, there were like follow-up questions, of course. But like I just had these preset questions. And then I decided after asking him and gaining the understanding about his background and leading up to where we are now on his side, instead of me asking him why he wasn't there, I decided to tell him about my life growing up and the things that I had to deal with growing up and how I had to deal with abandonment, how I never felt as though I could. So it was like I framed it in a way where I'm speaking about my experiences rather than accusing him of anything. And then after, kind of explaining to him, after like getting to the process of the beginning to where we are now, I also reminded myself that, and I'm just reminding you all as well, there is not going to be a perfect answer. There's no answer that could come that could excuse that man for not being in your life. You're not going to get this magical answer and just be like, okay, all is forgiven. No, and you have to prepare yourself for those type of answers. Because it could go, because there are certain answers that you may not want to hear. So, and the conversation could go left. So you have to prepare yourself in case that does happen. That no matter what he says or what he does, is that you went into that conversation trying to get the truth and trying to get healing. I think what I also did, I also prayed heavily. Yeah. I prayed, I cried to God. I said, God, this is something that needs to happen and I want it to be done in the way that you see fit. And I allowed God to take control. And sorry, it's just his brain. I remember and everything. It just
take it on.
I think at the end of the conversation, he did apologize and he did want to start over and he did want to try something new. I was so happy for that, because it's just like I went in there thinking that he may not even want anything, or he may just want nothing to do, or he may just go back into the same way that he was. And to hear that, he apologized, I think that was something I needed to hear. Even though it's just words, it's just something that it meant so much to me in that moment. And that having a conversation is not even easy. Even if you're in a good and stable mindset, it's not easy. And I remember going back into the car and just crying and like big man tears, crying because and like trying to breathe because it's just like it was so much. Because you are dealing with us so much, you are talking about a lot of things, and it is an uncomfortable conversation, but it was a necessary conversation. no matter how uncomfortable it was. And after that, I went over by like my friend Darius, and like I was just like, oh my gosh, Darius, I just did this dog. I was just like,
Right.
I just like tried to calm myself, and then I went home, and yeah, and since then, he has been actively trying and reaching out and like messaging me. We even met up another time after that, but then COVID came back and like we couldn't really go anywhere or do anything. So he just sends me a message from time to time, just checking on me, and I was checking on him, and we are in a good place now. As I say, it's not easy. I still don't call him dad. I don't think I could reach that place right now. I think it's gonna take some time. Honestly, I just don't call him anything, guys. So like, if you are like me and like you just don't say anything to him, you don't even call him by his first name, nothing. It's okay. Trust me. I just be like talk. I just hope that they understand and you're talking to them. So yeah, it's definitely not going to be easy. It's a battle, and I think once you are willing, and your father is willing as well, it's going to take some time, some healing, and a lot of time. I mean, for some people, it might be you go back into a very good state and whatever, but for me, I have to take time because I think for myself, like my body, my mind, my soul is just pushing me to still be cautious and not get my feelings all the way in there because I've had done it before.
Yeah.
And I've been crushed so many times.
Yeah.
And I don't want to put myself back in a situation where I get myself so emotionally involved where if it does fall through again, it's just, and I know maybe this isn't the right way. I understand if it isn't the right way, but it's just something that I feel in my heart.
It's valid.
That I need to take it slow. Mm-hmm. Unless like God tells me, hey, running into this or whatever, God will have to help me along that way because God, because God loves to put you in some situations sometimes, but I think that we're on the right path. It's not. And I think whatever situation, whatever comes out the conversation, because my conversation could have gone way left. We could have been real bad, could have been arguing, horrible, cut out, all that. And if that does happen, I think the main thing is that you remember that your earthly father is not a proper reflection of your heavenly father. And if it does fall through like that, if it does go wrong like that, if it does go left, even right now, I'm still remembering that my earthly father is not like my heavenly father. And I just keep reminding myself of that and keep running to God and running to that, my father up in heaven.
Yeah.
And he has been sustaining me throughout this whole period. And of dealing with the situation, of having that conversation, of still talking to this thing. Because even when he messages me sometimes now, it is hard. Sometimes my emotions just come as a flare as soon as he messages me sometimes. And I just remember that God sustains in the middle of the storm. God will continue to sustain me. And that is what has been driving me. And that is where we are right now.
I really appreciate what you said, especially with, I think, and it's a bitter pill to swallow, but first of all, bro, I just want to commend you so much for taking the first step to have that conversation, because I am someone who repeatedly told myself that I would never do that because that's not my job. I'm not supposed to reach out to you. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I didn't. I
am the child. You are the adult.
You
supposed to want the relationship.
Exactly.
Definitely. Definitely.
But I commend you so much for not giving into that mindset anymore, for really taking charge, like your therapist said, of your reality and taking control of what you can in your own life. And I really think it's a bitter pill to swallow, but it's true of the fact that no matter what question you ask, no answer will ever be enough. No answer will ever erase all the years of inner turmoil. No answer will be perfect. But it's important to at least reach out and have that conversation. And I love the fact that you even allowed your dad to give you a bit of his history and let you know where he came from, so you can possibly note some generational curses, or you can note some patterns of behavior that have stayed within the family over time. And now you have the opportunity to take that data and say, okay, well, I'm going to be different from me and my seed, me and my lineage to come, you know? So I think that's really, look at you being a man, a real man. Good on you, bro. Haley, where are you now in your life and where are you now in your relationship with your dad?
Yes. So I also just wanted to say, because I feel like I just can't not address it, but like major shout out to Steph, like you said. I feel like, firstly, everything you shared was so powerful. And I just want to thank you for sharing that. I mean, like I feel moved by it. I was moved by it when we talked about it, but I also know it's going to impact somebody out there. And I think the way you went about it, where it was also still very systematic, as in I wrote stuff down and I knew what I wanted to say. And, you know, it really was you taking control of, you know, just kind of what you hoped to get from the situation. And I just really commend you. It's y'all. I haven't done it, and I'll talk about that, but I can't imagine how much it takes to just confront and initiate that conversation. And like Steph did that, y'all. Like that's huge. And it says a lot. When it comes to me, I think Steph had mentioned, and I was like, this is so beautiful, when he talked about his focus on redefining himself. And he talks like specifically for him about redefining himself in relationships and just his commitment to healing. And I think that resonates with me a lot. I think where I'm at right now has a lot to do with just healing and growth. I am still in therapy, although when I did therapy specifically focused on stuff around my dad, that would have been around like 2 years ago. And I would have done that for like a good period of time as well. But I mean, like we mentioned, it is a journey, right? So, and I mean, I think it's Jabari that mentioned it too. Like, it doesn't just go away. I think everybody should know that. Like, therapy is incredibly, incredibly helpful. And I would highly recommend it for most things, to be honest, especially situations like this. But it doesn't mean that things just go away or things are immediately fixed. And what you find with therapy is not the job of the therapist or anyone else to make things better. It's like Steph said, it's just taking responsibility and accountability for where you're at. And I think that's kind of where I've been at, honestly, for like the past year or so. It was a lot of reframe in my mind, like I had mentioned before, from I can't blame every bad decision I've made on I didn't have a dad and this is my dad's fault. Like that was a big thing for years. I can't just continue to see myself as a victim. You know, I had to reach the point where I took accountability for the fact that, hey, I am my own person.
Right.
And, you know, I make my own decisions. And that doesn't mean it isn't affected by things that happen to me, because it definitely is. But also I have the power to make better decisions. And how that works is with the inner healing that then makes that change. So I think that more or less encompasses where I've been. I mean, Steph shared like a really amazing like nugget from therapy that he had. And I think one thing I'll share that was really powerful for me, my therapist also told me something very similar to what Steph said, where I've kind of really like lived in my feelings for a very long time. And I've let my feelings and my emotions dictate my life and dictate decisions I've made and my behavior. And she said something to me and I'll never forget it. And I try to incorporate it now in everything I do. And it's that feelings are actually neither right nor wrong. Your feelings are valid, but it's what you do with those feelings. Wow. So it's your behavior and it's your thoughts and it's what comes from that. I could feel angry and I could feel hurt, and that's valid. It's not wrong, it's right. But then what do I do with that anger next? Where do I go from there? That's really like the cornerstone, you know? And I think that was big for me because, again, and this is just, you know, we being honest in this conversation, I definitely would just react out of feelings for a very long time. You know, it would just be like, this is how I feel and this is what it's going to be and this is what you're going to see. But again, maturity and growth, we love it. So I think it was a lot of also me processing, and this came from therapy as well, processing what I felt around the absence of my dad, because I didn't do that. And like I mentioned, I guess in my household, I didn't really have the space to do that. That wasn't like a conversation that was like actively cultivated. So it was a lot of like exercises with, right, how this made you feel with your dad, right? You know, let's talk about how this made you feel. And that was really difficult because, like I said, I pushed that stuff down. But in understanding that, I was able to, please, dogs, let me have this moment. Yeah, I was able to.
You dogs want to chime in too.
Right. Like we agree. I think I was able to reach that place where I was like, whoa, I guess a lot of what I felt was valid. And it wasn't just like, it wasn't putting any value judgments on the feelings that I had because my dad wasn't there, or even just continuing to like live in guilt and shame because of decisions I made, because I feel like my identity was all over the place and I didn't know my self-worth. But it was now just kind of trying to, I guess, see this is where I was at and this is what it was and this is how I feel and have felt. I'm like, what do I do from here? You know what I mean? Like, what's the trajectory forward? And that's just kind of where I've been, is a lot of just aligning where I'm at right now with, of course, like the word and those different things. And again, actively just trying to be different in like friendships and relationships and not having this big looming thing that we all talking about, these daddy issues, like dictate my life and not having it, you know, impacts like so many things. And again, it is a process. I can sit here today and tell you all there's still a lot of things that have come from that situation, and like it being such a prolonged thing with my dad not being around, that still affects me now. I think there's a lot of like ingrained beliefs, core beliefs and ideologies that we get from these things, and it doesn't just magically go away. It definitely doesn't. So it's a process of being aware, actively aware, and working through those things. And yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm definitely not where I think I want to be, wherever that is. But I definitely think Stefan said it so beautifully. He was like, we're on the right path. And I felt that. I was like, I think we're on the right path. When it comes to my dad, I don't know, guys, honestly, if I will ever have the strength and bravery to do what Stefan did. So how it worked is, and I'm just being honest, I just can't imagine. And I don't know if part of it is also the fact that, again, my dad doesn't live here. And that's never a conversation I would have over the phone. But I also just can't imagine sitting in front of my dad and being like, this is how you made me feel, or this is how your absence affected me. And to be honest, I think there were times where I tried to, or where it's been like, oh yeah, you know, I'm sorry for this and I'm sorry for that. But it's all been very, you know what I mean? Like it's just kind of come and go as quick as it said. And it just kind of goes back to everything. That's kind of how it is with him. So I guess part of me just doesn't see the sense in having that conversation, because I feel like even if there are apologies, which there have been, you know, things don't really change. And maybe that's not the goal. And I think that was the closure that I got from therapy, that the goal is no longer like, hey, you know, my dad needs to change and this relationship needs to change and his lifestyle needs to change. Like, no, he's his own person and he makes his own decisions. And again, my job is to honor him in spite of those things. And one thing I want to leave with everyone that made me really emotional when I kind of came to that realization is, if we believe that God is sovereign and that everything he does is for a reason and is for purpose and is for good, then I believe that God made my father, that God made him uniquely who he is. And not just that, but he made my father as my father. Like he chose me for him and him for me. And that was like, I don't know, I kind of got like chills saying it, just because, again, I'm saying it and it's still hard to accept because I don't connect with him. And I'm sure you'll understand what I'm saying, right? Yeah. Like I don't connect with him as dad. But then how could I ever question that this was God ordained when we believe what we believe? How could I ever question that this is a man that God chose as my dad? And if this is the situation, then there's a purpose and there's growth and there's things that come from that, you know? So yeah, I think our relationship I think anything would have been better than it was before because we didn't have a relationship. Yeah. So we talk on and off. He will call sometimes, I call sometimes. I think because there's been healing and there's been forgiveness, I haven't actively said, I forgive you, because we haven't had that conversation. But I think even if you don't reach there, and I mean, I think honestly, ideally, what happened with Steph is how it should go. That's just me being honest. I don't think the situation will always allow for that. Like, I don't think my situation, at least where it is right now, that could be the situation. But ideally, I think there's a lot of healing that comes from that, like being able to just say that and have that conversation. I haven't had that, but I know that there's been a level of forgiveness just within myself. And the reason I know that is, if there wasn't, I would never be able to speak to him. And I wasn't able to for a very long time. And now I kind of do, and it's not like everything is normal, but I try to be more open about school and stuff like that. I don't feel the weight that I used to feel before. There's still hurt and there's still pain. And like Steph said, there's definitely a lot of walls up where I can't imagine, like, you know, just like, I don't tell him a lot about my life or like how I would sit with my mom and just kind of tell everything. That doesn't happen. But I don't feel that weight that holds me down with regards to that anymore. I guess that's the only way I could say it. I feel a bit more liberated. I intentionally reach out sometimes. Doesn't happen often, to be honest. Because I think, to be honest, I mean, you grew up your whole life without your dad. So it's just like, you know what I mean? Like, you're just kind of accustomed. You're not really thinking about it.
Yeah, now I oh, I have to message you now.
Right? Exactly. Oh my God, I miss him.
I have to tell you about my day.
Yeah, I mean, to be frank, I really miss you because, he's not already here. But I try to be more intentional, and he also reaches out a lot. I think it would be nice if one day it could reach that point where we could have a conversation about that, but I think that would take a lot on my end to kind of get into that stuff. And I don't know if that's something I'll ever fully be prepared for. But like Steph said, I'll end mine on the same way. I think we're on the right track. And I think I know what makes me content is that I know within myself that I'm doing the work. And I know that God is doing a healing work in me, and that there's been, and I keep saying a level of forgiveness. It's just because I don't want to be jaded and be like, it's all forgiven and it's great. Because I know I still have my, certain things that hold me back. But I think for the most part, there's been forgiveness and there's been progress. And I think knowing that within myself and committing to that healing work within myself, that in itself is a lot. So
one thing before you start, Jabari, one thing you said, and first of all, Haley, wow, your strength is unbelievable. And, I love you, and I'm so proud of you for your strength and your abilities to forgive. One thing that we all deal with, I think it's so hard to deal with the pain and hurt of dealing with these situations. And sometimes the pain and hurt just grows so deep into every part of our lives. But one thing I am learning in this season, I think I heard a preacher said it recently. I think her name is Brie Davis. She said, pain and hurt is a meeting place with God. And if you don't make the space for that meeting place with God, then you could be stuck in that place. And you could be stuck in that hurt, and you could be stuck in that pain and all of that. But essentially what you're saying is, when you experience pain and hurt, is the time to run to God. It's the time to really dig deep into it. I know it's probably not going to feel like doing it. You're not going to feel like getting there. You're not going to feel like meeting with God, especially in the pain and hurt, especially when you don't even understand the pain and hurt. But it is a meeting place with God. And when you align yourself with God, healing can come. And that's where I'm learning now in all of this as well. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for saying that. I think that bounce off of Haley's point super duper well. And I just wanted to read this quote from a 1956 study of divorce that I read. American sociologist William Good said, at every developmental phase of childhood, the child needs the father, who is usually the absent parent, as an object of love, security, or identification, or even as a figure against whom to rebel safely. It would be surprising if the absence of the father had no effect on the child. The part that really stuck out to me when I read that was an object of identification, because like Haley's, I too at one point in time felt like I didn't really have that much of an identity. And it got to the point where there was a point in time I didn't want to have children because I felt like I wouldn't even know what to do. Like, I wouldn't know how to be a father. I wouldn't know how to lead, especially if you look at fatherhood and husbandhood through the biblical lens where you're supposed to be the man of the house and you're leading, your family and your children. And I didn't think that I could ever do that. But one thing I want to leave with everybody, something that, while I was writing the blog, the Holy Spirit dropped in my heart, was that the predecessor is never the successor. So the one who came before is never the one who is to come. You know what I mean? And you have the opportunity, just even by us having these conversations right now, just by Haley going to therapy and doing that inner work and being conscious of the work that she's doing, by Stefan reaching out to his father, having those conversations, I want you all to understand that in and of those moments, you are changing the course of your genealogy. You're helping break generational curses, and you're helping break that cycle of absenteeism and of distant relationships, or understanding that, oh, well, all relationships break up, or oh, everybody will always leave me. You are coming one step closer to your children or your grandchildren being, adults who understand that no, because all relationships don't end. And no, like I'm not supposed to be okay with not having a daughter and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I want to ask you guys if you have any closing words or final statements that you would like to share with the people.
What you shared honestly was so powerful, and I got so much out of it. This whole discussion, I received so much out of it from you both. The study that you quoted, and like my nerd side was so excited because again, psychology, but that's exactly what it is. Especially when he talks about identification and like a safe person to rebel against, like that's so huge, and doesn't matter which gender. I mean, again, different. I think each gender is affected differently by the absence of the father, but both genders are immensely affected for those reasons. I think the one thing I would just say is, if you're Christian and you believe in God, then we believe in forgiveness and we believe in healing and we believe in growth. And I think the reason I'll leave that there is because I don't think that there's any situation, and this is not to undermine the depth or the intensity or the pain of any situation or experience. I just don't think there's any situation that's too great or too far gone for God. And I just want us to remember that. And if you're out there and you listen to this and you got something from it, or you also have had daddy issues in whatever capacity, it didn't have to be in the same way as Steph or me or Jabari, but just know that healing can come, and the importance of just kind of taking responsibility and awareness of where you're at. And that there are people that you could talk to as well, people who go through similar situations and have felt similar things. And yeah, and I think the last thing I'll say is the fact that the feelings are neither right nor wrong. The feelings are most times valid. Yeah, the feelings are usually always valid, but it's just what we do with those feelings and where we go from there that makes the difference. Yeah.
Mr. Shaw?
First of all, everything Haley said, period. But also, if you are watching this, if you were sent this, if you just happen to stumble upon a clip, if you are going through this situation where you haven't grown up with your father in your life or whatever, I just want to remind you that you are so much more than you think you are. You have worth. You are special. You are loved. Nobody's going to leave you. Nobody wants to leave you. If people do leave you, then that's on them, but you are wanted. You are valid. You are a person. You are whole. And you are made in God's likeness. You are beautiful. If nobody has ever told you that you are beautiful, young lady. If nobody tells you that you are a handsome young man. You are so much more than you think you are. And if you see watching this and you're Christian, or if you're not, I just want to say your emotions, your feelings, your everything, take it all and run to the Father. And when I say Father, I don't mean just your earthly father, but the heavenly Father. Because he accepts you. He has seen what you've been through. He has been there, and he's just waiting for you to knock on his door. And he will accept you with open arms. He'll give you the big bear hug you probably always wanted. He will lift you up. He's not afraid to show you off to his friends. He's not afraid to show you off to the world. He's proud of you. He loves you, and he will always love you. So run to the Father. And that's all I would say. I love you all.
Well, stuff like Loki really to me any emotional.
Yeah, no, I had actual chills. You know why I think it is, just to say this, because I wish I was younger and listening to this. And that's not to big this up, but especially like what Steph was saying there, like that still hit me. And that's how there's still a lot of emotions and feelings you feel around these things. But people need to hear that, because I think when you go through these experiences with your dad, like absenteeism, there's a lot of feeling like you're not worthy and that you're not enough and that things are going to fall apart. That's why I was talking about those like core beliefs that you just kind of, it's ingrained almost. And it's not that it can't be reversed, because it definitely can. But yes, Steph, sorry, I just had to say that. I was like crying. I was like, just go ball on the people.
Yeah, listen, that's all part of the healing process. Yes, and I just want to say, if you're if you're a father who's watching this, take these accounts and log it in as data points in your mind. So that you can be, if you're a present father, be a better father. You know, if you're an absent father, make those amends, because you know, we might act like we don't care, we might act like this whatever, like you know, but we the inner child in us wants that. We want that that olive branch, you know, we want it. Yeah. Whether you're a teenager, a young adult, a full-fledged adult, we still want that. You know, children, we're hardwired as children to love our parents. It's not like we come out the womb just wanting nothing to do with them. Make that extra step. I promise you, even though we might resist at first, or we might act like, oh, whatever, we want it and we need it. So I just want to end this discussion by saying thank you to my panelists and my friends, my dear friends, Stefan Shah and Haley Panchu. And I love you guys so much. And I really am so grateful that you guys came on and you were vulnerable and open. And, you know, at the risk of having family members see this, possibly you guys just, you know, paid it all. And I really appreciate that, because as Stefan, you know, mentioned, it's at that place of hurt and at that place of vulnerability where we can really reach each other. And it's at that point where we can begin healing in our own lives. And, you know, take what Haley said, do the work, be conscious of the work that needs to be done in your own life so that you can meet your dad halfway. You know, you can't just expect him to do everything. You have to come to terms with what effects are at work in my life. What am I doing in my relationships as a result of this relationship that I have with my dad or that I don't have with my dad? And I just want to close by saying, whoever you are, no matter what you're going through, someone else is facing your struggle. You are never the only one. So thank you all so much for watching or listening. And yeah, have a great day, night, or afternoon, whatever time you're watching this. Bye.
Bye.